Hey guys, this is Aaron Shell here, and I'm just gonna go over the pre-release this weekend and how my pre-release experience was, and I hope it was good for you guys too. So I chose Demir as my guild, and my secret ally was Rakdos, which is actually pretty fortunate because I actually wanted to play Grixis colors, which, if you're not familiar with the Shards of Alara, it is blue, black, and red. Well, I am very happy I got my colors. I am a little bit disappointed in this pre-release because I didn't really pull a very good pool, and I feel like it was implemented poorly. Like the maze running, that whole thing, I was the only Demir person at my pre-release. There was about 45 people there, and I was the only Demir. So it was just me fighting alone for my guild. And luckily, I did advance it a little bit, and I did not come in last, so that was awesome. However, Gruul turned out to have at least, I think it was 12 people, some huge number of Gruul players that, and so they just won by round two because they're most of them just won their match and they just went through the race, through the maze, and just won. So I felt that was poor planning on Wizards' part. And second, I don't know if you guys know this, but the guild packs apparently they come in 8 different set guild packs for each guild. So for instance, if you got Demir, you had like a few different packs that you could get. However, I don't think that was enough, or that wasn't quite the right thing to do, because tons of players that I played had the same rares in their packs. And it almost meant, well, like, this one was an interesting one because they didn't give you a promo card to play in your pool. For instance, with like Return to Ravnica and Gatecrash, you got your guild champion or whatever that you could play in your deck. And this one, it almost did the same thing, except it kind of screwed players. Because some players would open up their pack and they would open up the mythic rare guild leader. Like, for instance, I'll have a little bit of spoilers. I opened Lazav for my Demir guild pack. However, some people opened complete crap in their guild pack. And so I felt it was very unfair that they had such a diverse level of card power in the packs. Granted, I didn't see enough of the other packs to really know. I mean, it could be that I opened Lazav and there just wasn't any good creatures in it, which wasn't true. There was like a Death Cult Rogue and a Sage's Road Denizen, which I like both of, and there was removal. So I don't really know if like another pack is more balanced or something, but it was just terrible. Like some players just got completely screwed. They got like unplayable stuff, and I pulled like you could pull your guild runner or your guild champion. So it was just poor planning and poor execution, I think, on Wizards' part. But it was still a fun pre-release. So I'm gonna go to the rares I opened, and which is a little bit disappointing. I mean, I got Lazav out of my Demir pack and Chaos Imps out of my Rakdos pack. So Chaos Imps is something we were definitely interested in playing. Yeah, if you haven't played with it, it is just a beating. It's a 7 power a lot of the time that just beats face, and it ends the game in usually 1 to 2 turns. Possibility Storm, I was never interested in playing that. It is an interesting card, very much for Johnnies among us, but I wasn't really interested in playing it. Render Silent. Now this card is definitely interesting. I think it's playable in maybe Azorius or something along those lines. However, 3 mana hard counters that are all colored generally aren't good and limited just because of the color constraint. So I didn't play it because it just wasn't in my colors. And then Renegade Crassus, I was very sad to see this guy because I'm a Simic player at heart. I love Simic, and it just made me a little bit mad that I would open him and not be playing Simic. And then lastly, I pulled the money card, well, a money card, Blood Baron of Vizkopa. This is like a $12 to $13 card right now. He's very good, and I definitely wanted to play him, even if I had to splash for it. However, I will say this: for some reason, I was sitting at a table with some friends building my deck. 3 out of 4 of us pulled a Blood Baron from our packs. Now, I'm not really a conspiracy theorist, but it seemed a little sketch, if you know what I mean, for us all to pull the Blood Baron. Anyway, so I'm gonna go on to my list. I'm gonna skip showing you guys all the commons and uncommons because it's just gonna take too long. And if you want, I'll definitely post a list if you guys ask me to, just so you can see what the other options were. But I've built a very defensive creature deck that's really relying on flyers and our bombs to get there. We have a Bane Alley Blackguard and a Bane Alley Broker. That's the 1/3 for 2, and that's the Looter from Gatecrash. We have a Blood Baron and Chaos Imps as our bomb. And then we have Rogue, Sprite, Windrake, and Rakdos Drake as flyers to kind of just get in some damage and to be able to stop opposing flyers. Opal Lake Gatekeepers and the Bane Alley guys serve as good blockers so we can make it to the late game where our guys will take over. Rixmani Guildmage, it's just an awesome card. It did work all day. I was never unhappy to cast it. It made blocking terrible for my opponents. And Rebel Maka was there as a decent sized body combined with a combat trick if I really needed it. So that was my creatures. You notice my creature count is a little low. I'm only playing 11, but that's very much because of a control deck, and I didn't have the cards to go aggro, and so I'm going to be very reliant on my spells. Luckily, I got a pretty good pull of spells. I have a ton of removal, Annihilating Fire, Runner's Bane. While Fatal Fumes isn't that good of a removal spell, it does hit the small things, and especially when you have creatures on the board, it lets you trade. Well, at the very least, trade, if not have one-sided kills with the Fatal Fumes. Ultimate Price, which wasn't as good because of all the multicolored, but it was still solid. Grizzly Spectacle, just it was so nice just having a solid removal spell, and far and away did work all day. You were never unhappy to cast it for 2 to 3 mana, and when you cast it for 5, you just felt good. Psychic Strike, I always like to have one counter in my deck, especially when you hit like 8 mana, so you can cast your Blood Baron and leave up a counter for the removal spell. And Pilfered Plans was just something to make sure we hit our land drops and to get some card advantage back in the late game. I played 2 Cluestones, Orzhov Cluestone to help splash the Blood Baron, and the Izzet Cluestone just to make sure we got our blue and our red, because we required double red the most out of anything, even though black was pretty important to us. And it was just nice drawing cards. I almost never cashed in the Orzhov Cluestone for cards just because I needed it to cast a Blood Baron, but I changed in Izzet Cluestone quite a number of times for an extra card. Lastly, we have the mana base. We got very lucky, at least I got very lucky with my mana base. The Azorius Guildgate and the Orzhov Guildgate is basically a free splash for the Blood Baron, because this is essentially an island and a swamp that enters the battlefield tapped. We got 3 uncolored guild gates to help fix our mana, and then we have these. So you can see I have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 black sources, 5, 6, 7 islands, 3, 4, 5 mountains, 5 red sources. So we're doing very well in our colors, at least for the mana base. Not to mention the clue stones, which helps fix the mana. So the plan was really to just rely on removal spells and creatures with a lot of toughness to really get into the late game, so we could really just cast our bombs and kill them in a few turns. Unfortunately, Blood Baron didn't do as much work as I was hoping he would do. I only won like two of the games where I cast him in. One was because I was just at so low life that when I cast him, he still killed me even though I blocked and gained 4 life. But he was still very good. I feel like he would be much better in a straight Orzhov deck. With my deck, he was just kind of a creature that ensured that you would live long enough to hopefully out attrition them. And Chaos Imps just did work all day. It killed so many people when it resolved, so it was just ridiculous. And so, lastly, I want to address something that I think you guys are thinking. Why did I not play Lazov, the Demir Mastermind? Well, there's a couple of reasons, but the most important one is his mana cost. Having to have double white and double blue and double black is really hard in a three-color deck splashing white. So it was very unlikely that I'd be able to cast him on turn 4. And even if I did, he's only a 3/3 hexproof at that point, so he's not the best, and he doesn't have a big enough butt to block most creatures or stop most aggro decks. So I didn't really want to play him. And when I would usually have the mana, it would be turn like 7 or 8, and he's not that strong in the late game because you've probably removed a lot of their bombs to get to that point. So he just wasn't something I really considered playing. So I'd like to really cover the rounds I did. First round I actually drew. The first game my opponent had Raul Zarek. He pulled a Raul Zarek and he played that turn 4 against me. And being as my creatures are I have a very light creature deck and most of them were within bolt range. He just bolted 2 creatures and I scooped because I couldn't get there from there. Uh, Game 2, I had a fast enough hand that I killed his Raul Zarek when he resolved it again, and I just managed to fight through it, but it was a long game. And then it went to time and turns in game 3, and I had just stabilized and probably would have been able to come back, unfortunately. So I'm sad I lost that, but I drew that. Game 2 was just nothing really to talk about. He was Simic Golgari, and I just won 2-0. I just crushed him. The thing was, this guy, my opponent, was constantly on his iPhone. I don't know why. I don't know what he was doing. He was just every turn he would be on his iPhone, ignoring what I was doing until he had to. So it was really strange. Uh, Round 3, I was facing somebody who was Gruul, and his secret ally was Selesnya. However, he was playing uh, red, green, white. It was Gruul and Boros together. So I guess he pulled some Boros stuff in the Dragon's Maze pack and just chose to pretty much ignore like the Selesnya cards and just went Boros with Gruul backup kind of thing. It was it wasn't that hard of a game. Game 1 I resolved Blood Baron after he ran out of removal spells, so yeah, that just won me the game there. And then game 2 he got mana screwed, so there was nothing really to say about that. Got mana screwed, and my flyers killed him. Round 4 was a lot harder. My opponent was a very good player that I knew, and we were usually kind of comparative in skill, but he just pulled nuts stuff. He had Gaze of Granite, Aetherling, Teysa, Envoy of Ghosts, and it was just such a frustrating game because I couldn't tap out because his Aetherling was going to come down if I didn't Psychic Strike it. And then once I countered his Aetherling, he dropped Teysa. And then the other game, he Gaze of Granite to make me burn my counterspell. But I pulled through because my flyers would deal damage to him, and then I killed him once he actually resolved Teysa because he was just that slow low life that I just killed him with flyers anyway. It was a close game. I sided in a lot of counters against his guys, and it turned out to work very well. And then lastly, I'm a little mad about this. I ended up drawing in the last round. My opponent, I was actually in second place at this point. I was 3-0-1, and the next best record was 4-0, and everybody else besides him had lost a round. But unfortunately, I decided to draw instead because he assured me that I would make the top five, which was the top four, which was assured prizes. Unfortunately, I got fifth, so I was a little bummed because the guy assured me that I would make it. However, you live and you learn. Always make sure to count your points and be sure if they offer you a draw, if it is in your advantage. So in conclusion, I went 3-0-2, haha, technically undefeated, and placed fifth out of prizes for my local game store, unfortunately. Hope you guys enjoyed this video and enjoyed your pre-release, and I'll see you guys later.